Hi everyone, it is Atia here at Booking with Atia, and today we're going to get into all of the books that I read during the month of August. I had a really great reading month during August. I'm going to start with some nice little stats for us. So in August, I read a total of 47 books. It was 13 novels and 2 novellas, 10 comics, and 22 volumes of manga. Now, the comics and manga I'm going to talk about in a separate video. That's going to be my 31 comics and manga in 31 days wrap up. That's a whole separate video. So for this video, I'm just going to be focusing on the 13 novels and 2 novellas that I read during the month of August. I read a total of 8,317 pages, as well as 29.55 hours. My average star rating was 4.15. 4 of the books I read were either advanced reader copies, gifts from publishers, or authors. I read 13 and a half physical books, 25 and a half ebooks, and 6 audiobooks. 10 of the books feature queer representation, and everything that I read was written by an author of color and starred BIPOC protagonists. And 11 of my August reads were 2023 releases. So I'm going to organize this wrap up by star rating, and I'm actually going to start with the DNF of the month, which was The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. Now, this is part of a vlog project that I have coming out, so I'm not going to talk too much about why I DNF'd it, but essentially the characters weren't doing it for me. But this will be up in my Pango Books storefront, so if you're looking for a very like nice copy, because it, you know, barely looks like it's been read, you can check out my Pango Books storefront, which is linked down below, to snag this copy for yourself. Next up, we'll move on to my 2.5 stars. So I read Fiona and Jane by Jean Chen Ho. This is an adult contemporary collection of vignettes that follow these 2 best friends from the time they're in, I would say, high school all the way throughout their adulthood. It's very much a coming of age story, and it follows both of our characters. Honestly, nothing was pulling me back to this book to read. It took me so long considering how short it was. It was the July pick for my book club, Bibliophiles Unite book club, which you can join. Go to the link tree in my description, you can join my book club. But that was our July read. It is now September, or no, I finished it on the last day of August. Right? Okay, so it took me 2 months to get through this book, and it's not a thick book by any means necessary. I simply was not pulled back to read it at all. Jane and Fiona's voices were almost identical. The only way I knew whose perspective we were reading from, because the chapter headers don't tell you. The chapters all have names, but they do not tell you whose perspective that particular vignette is going to be told from. And the only reason I knew who was who is because I picked up on in the beginning that Jane's perspective was told in first person, whereas Fiona's perspective was told in third person. Other than that, undistinguishable. Like, unidentifiable. It gently explores emerging sexuality in the character of Jane, but it's very gentle. So you have a queer protagonist that you know is queer from the beginning, and she goes on this interesting self-discovery journey that I thought could be a little deeper, but you know, it also felt more like Jane's story with Fiona sprinkled throughout. Now, I did unhaul this book, or I will be unhauling. This is another one that's in my Pango Books storefront right now. And I did not go through and count how many of the vignettes were for Jane and how many of them were for Fiona, but I would imagine it's pretty equal. It's just that Jane's stories were more impactful, they were more memorable, and perhaps that has something to do with the fact that her vignettes were told in the first person. I don't know, but it really just felt like Jane's story, and Fiona was there like, hey girl, hey. Next, we'll move on to the 3 stars. Now this is going to include my 3.25, my 3.5, and my 3.75 reads as well. First off, we have The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. Now, this is an interesting journey with this book because I initially tried to read this book, I want to say maybe 2 years ago when it first came out, and I DNF'd it. I was physically reading it and I could not get into it. But the opportunity came about for me to be on the tour for the third book, which is coming out, or maybe it's already out, I'm not sure. And I was like, you know what? I was intrigued by this premise, so let me give it another try. And since I knew that it was a series, I was like, okay, let me try giving the first book a go again. And I decided to go the route of audiobook this time. And this is an adult paranormal fantasy mystery series that's actually kind of post-apocalyptic. It takes place a little bit in the future, where there's like this big event that has happened that's constantly referenced in the book, and it takes place in Scotland. It's just interesting. It has vibes. It like has definite paranormal vibes. There's an element of magic to it as well. And this is book 1 in the Edinburgh Nights series. The main character is definitely gritty, you know, Ropa Moyo. She takes a little bit getting used to, and I think what didn't work for me reading it physically is that there's a lot of Scottish vernacular, Scottish slang that simply was not translating the first time I tried to read it. And so listening to it on audiobook made it easier to understand the slang, understand the vernacular in context, and also with the accent. That just seemed to help me, and I was enjoying it even more. The writing is okay and it makes for good background, and I wish the writing, or rather while I was reading it, I wish the writing was stronger, and I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Next up, we have Ebony Gate by Julia V and Ken Babel. This is an adult urban fantasy novel that takes place in San Francisco. It follows Emiko Song, who is well, she used to be an assassin, but now she's just, you know, kicking butt and taking names, but in the realm of monsters. And this is, I don't even know how to describe this, honestly. I'm trying to think about how I would describe it. Well, first of all, it's the first book in the Phoenix Horde series. I talked about it in a vlog, so if you go back to I believe my first vlog that I started putting out since my return to BookTube, you can see more of my thoughts on this. But basically, the pacing was stagnant. There was a lot happening, there were a lot of side quests, and it just, when we got towards the end of the book, I wanted the main plot to take more focus. And so that's what I mean by the plot was stagnant. The pacing was stagnant. However, the main character is super enjoyable. I enjoyed the world building. I love the world building, and I'm very much looking forward to when the sequel comes out, because this truly feels like a movie. And I gave this one 3.5 stars. Next up, we have Our Lady of Mysterious Ailments by T.L. Huchu. This is the second book in the Edinburgh Nights series. So again, adult paranormal fantasy mystery. I thought that the mystery in this one was much better than in the first book. And I'm realizing that when I'm talking about the first book, I didn't say what it was about. We have a ghost talker, Ropa Moyo, who ends up falling into a situation where she has to then become a magician, or she is invited into this spectacular, speculative magician world of Scotland where they look down on ghost talkers. And she has a certain knack for solving mysteries, and there is something happening with the Library of the Dead. So of course she's investigating. And in the second book, Our Lady of Mysterious Ailments, one of her friends works at this clinic with this name of the title, and there is this weird occurrence happening with some of the local children where they just slip into a coma and they are not waking up, and it's nothing medical, it's obviously magical. And so Ropa is brought in to help investigate. We definitely got more of the character of Ropa. We got more of her relationship with her grandmother, her sister, and her friends, and it just felt better and more fleshed out, and I was more attached to the characters. I was more attached to Ropa and more invested in what was happening. It's spookier, and you can definitely see the writing progressing with each book. I am currently reading the third book, and I mean, this author is progressing, which is so nice to see. And I ended up giving Our Lady of Mysterious Ailments 3.5 stars. Next up, we have A Shimmer of Red by Valerie Wilson Wesley. This is an adult cozy mystery. It is the third book in the Odessa Jones series. I appreciate how in this series the characters are not stagnant. And when I say characters, I don't just mean the main character, Odessa Jones. The side characters are also not stagnant. We see them changing and growing as the story goes on, and I'm really appreciating that. The ending wasn't my favorite in this one. I kind of saw it coming from the beginning, because I would say there was at least one clue, but probably more, where it just made who the villain is, if you want, so obvious. And the entire time I was reading, I was like, it is this person. Like, why are we sitting here, or why has no one connected it and put the dots together? But other than the ending, I enjoyed it, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Next up, we have There Goes the Neighborhood by Jade Adia. This is a YA contemporary with some hints of mystery thriller aspects. It deals with gentrification. The ending honestly kind of flew off the rails, and the reveal was way too convenient for me. Like, it had me hooked up until the end, and I was like, what is happening? Why? It was just pure chaos, right?
Hi y'all, Editing Achia here. I realized while doing this that I didn't actually tell you what this book is about. So There Goes the Neighborhood follows a group of teens who, in order to try and stop the rapid gentrification that's happening in their neighborhood, they decide to create a fake gang using the power of social media and white flight and white terror. And it quickly gets out of hand from there as they try and keep up this ruse of a fake gang. And, well, some people end up dead that shouldn't have been.
There was a lot of jumping to conclusions, and it simply didn't make sense. It didn't make sense how we got there, and, you know. Other than that, right, let's talk character. While I did not mesh with our main character, Rhea, for the first third of the book, I appreciated that she was able to grow, but I also appreciate the fact that this author made space for an unlikable black girl protagonist, because we don't usually see that, and we don't usually accept unlikable black girls and black women in real life in the vein of protecting them and allowing them to be full fleshed out characters, right? So you don't have to like a person to respect them, and I think that was handled so well. Also, Rhea has incredible character growth, and her growth is not linear, right? She is a teenager. She makes some teenage decisions which have some teenage repercussions. Like, there were so many moments during, I listened to the audiobook while I was listening to it, and I was like, Rhea girl, what are we doing? That is that underdeveloped prefrontal cortex at work right there. Also, the friend group was excellent. I really love the friend group. I ended up giving this one 3.75 stars. Next up, we have The Thing About Home by Rhonda Knight. The Thing About Home follows popular lifestyle influencer Casey Black as she's about to renew her vows to her husband of 7 years on live for, like, how many people? 1 million people. And right before they go down the aisle, he's like, yeah, babe, I can't do this. I want a divorce. And her entire life is thrown into a tailspin, and it follows her journey down south to the land of her father's people as she finally meets them, because she doesn't know them, meets them, connects with the land, and just rediscovers a part of herself that was missing for so long. This is an adult contemporary. This was a slower read for me, simply because I would forget about this book when I was not reading it. There was nothing that was pulling me back to reading this book besides the fact of, like, me catching sight of it and being like, oh yeah, I'm reading that and I kind of want to finish it. But I enjoyed it while I was reading it. I enjoyed the character arc of Casey Black. I enjoyed the romance that occurs between her and one of the people in the town, and overall it was a pretty solid read. I ended up giving this one 3.75 stars. Next up, we're going to move into my 4 stars, which is also going to include my 4.25 stars. We have The Rhythm of Time by Questlove with S.A. Cosby. This is a middle grade sci-fi that deals with time travel and the timeline. I have read from S.A. Cosby before. I have read his adult crime thriller books. He's the author of Razorblade Tears, Blacktop Wasteland, My Darkest Prayer, as well as All the Sinners Bleed, which is his most recent release. I was a little wary going into this one, simply because I'm always a little wary when an entertainer steps into the writer role, because it can go left real quick, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one. It has fast pacing, but it expertly explores the plot. It has excellent exploration of Raheem, who is our main character, and his turbulent relationship with his father. And so basically what happens in this one is that we have Raheem. He loves hip hop, he loves rap music, but his father is just like not about it whatsoever. He's like, in order to be excellent, you need to stay focused on your schoolwork. I'm not about technology. I don't want to hear about technology. And you also have Cassia, who is Raheem's genius best friend. She gives him a phone because she's like, what are we doing here? And that phone ends up taking him back in time to the 90s, and then all chaos ensues because somehow Raheem and Cassia are still able to communicate via this phone even though he's back in time. And she's like, hey, I need you to not do stuff and not talk to anyone because it's going to start to affect what's happening here. And we follow that journey as Raheem learns about his own background, as he learns about his father, as he learns about it's an interesting look at generational trauma, and it's packaged in a middle grade science fiction, which I thought was absolutely excellent. I love the friendship between Raheem and Cassia. Like it was just top tier, chef's kiss. It ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, so I have a feeling that we might be getting a sequel, which would be really cool. And I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Next up, we have Nothing Interesting Ever Happens to Ethan Fairmont by Nick Brooks. This is another middle grade science fiction novel that follows Ethan, who is this genius inventor. He loves inventing things from things around the house, and it is summer vacation, and he goes and he ends up in this warehouse with the new kid on the block, and they discover that a alien spaceship has landed in their warehouse, and like literally chaos ensues. So we follow Ethan, his new friend Juan Carlos, and his ex best friend Kareem as they figure out how to help this creature essentially leave our planet and rejoin his family. And they have to dodge the government, and it's great. I loved the friendship, I loved the vibes. It was also hilarious, like laugh out loud hilarious. And the reason that I mean, I'm always into middle grade sci-fi and fantasy, but the reason that this one especially piqued my interest is that it's by Nick Brooks, which is the same author of YA thriller Promise Boys, which I read and thoroughly enjoyed. So I was also just curious to see how this author would transfer from YA thriller to middle grade sci-fi, and I can definitely say that he did it perfectly. If I didn't say, I ended up giving Nothing Interesting Ever Happens to Ethan Fairmont 4 stars. Next up, we have Mistletoe by Kimberly Lemming. This is an adult black indie romance. This is Meat Mishaps 1.5, so this is in the same series as That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon, right? So this one takes place right after that book, in between books 1 and 2. It was fun, spicy, hilarious. It gave what it needed to give. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like there's not really much I can say about it. It is, I'm trying to think, is it 1.5 or 2.5? Just based on the events of, yeah, I believe it's 1.5. Okay. Next up, we have The Duchess Effect by Tracy Livesay. This is book 2 in the American Royalty series. We follow Danny and Jameson again, who is our couple from the first book. So in the first book, we have American rapper Duchess, whose real name is Danny, and she gets invited by Prince Jameson inadvertently, well, not by accident. He consciously invited her, but he did not do any research as to what type of music she did. And he is a Prince of England, and he invites her to a tribute to perform for a royal banquet. And she's trying to escape this huge scandal that she's in the Americas. So she's like, you know what, whatever, let me go over to England, lay low for a bit, and prepare for this concert. And it is their romance ensuing. It is a romance, so at the end of that one, they do end up together. In this one, we get to see an exploration of the relationship in its infancy, not in its infancy, more like in its like toddler stages, right? Because they have not known each other for long, and they're getting to know each other. I appreciated in this one that there's no third act breakup. There is simply them taking an appropriate amount of time to work through some personal trauma and some personal issues that are affecting the relationship so that they can move forward as a couple. It has its funny moments, that's balanced with moving moments. I also found it interesting that the way this one leaves off leaves room for a third book following Danny and Jameson. I have a feeling we're gonna get a third book because there's some major issues that are surrounding them that were not answered and not resolved. And I ended up giving this one 4 stars. All right, now we're gonna get into the goodies, right? We're gonna get into my 4.5 and my 5-star reads. First up, we have this thick girly here, The Bone Shard War by Andrea Stewart. This is the 3rd and final book in the Drowning Empire trilogy. In this book, let me see if I can sum this up. In this book, we have a world where the Emperor's family for generations has been able to do bone shard magic, where they take the shards of their citizens' bones to power these entities. There were once these beings that walked among the earth, and the Emperor's family slew them because apparently they were terrorizing them, and that's how they rose to power. We follow Lynn, who is the daughter of the Emperor, as she tries to prove to her father that she can actually take the throne and become the next emperor. We also follow Jovis, who is a, I guess, trafficker of goods, right? He's a sailor as well, and he gets embroiled into all this nonsense when some nefarious things happen. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought the character work was incredible. I mean, it's just an absolutely excellent series finale. And I loved that our protagonists were helping each other grow, because we follow we begin following 4 different perspectives in the first book, and by the 3rd book you see how they're all helping each other grow in different ways. What I really appreciate about this book in particular is that Falu and Renami, who we meet in the first book and we get their perspective in the first group, they grow so much. Renami has such an interesting character arc throughout the entirety of the series, and Falu, honestly, I did not care for. Not that I disliked her, I just did not care about her in the first 2 books. But in this one, it's like, okay, you've kind of grown a backbone a little bit, and so I enjoyed seeing that as well. And I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. Next up, we have, well, I'm actually gonna do these 2 in tandem. So we had That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf, and That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human, both by Kimberly Lemming. So in the second one, which is the werewolf one, we follow the best friend of the female main character of That Time I Got Drunk and Saved the Demon, right? Yeah, Saved a Demon. And she ends up throwing a love potion at a werewolf, and he's like, I'm in love with you, and like, you're mine. She's like, you know, you're kind of under the influence, and it is their journey. And then in the 3rd one, That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human, we follow a male character that we meet in the first book as he returns home. I'm trying to like say this without giving any spoiler. As he returns home and saves a human woman from imprisonment. Yeah. So both of these are funny, spicy, hilarious. They give what they need to give. I ended up giving That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf 4.5 stars. And I gave That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human 5 stars. The 3rd book gave me what I wanted in the first 2 books, and that's honestly just being longer. The first 2 books are novellas, which is fine. They like do the job, and they do the job well, but this 3rd book, you get so much more character development, you get so much more of the adventure, and it was just a great time. Lastly, we have Just for the Cameras by Viano Onyomo. This is another black indie romance that follows a queer polyamorous relationship between 3 best friends, where 2 of the best friends are already in a relationship. So we have Keon and Jordan. They are already in a relationship. They also do sex work as well. Jordan does it as her main career, and Keon has a, I guess you can say, a day job, and then he does sex work on the side. And their roommate is their other best friend, or their best friend Luca, who gives them the opportunity to invite him into one of their videos, and then it takes off from there. So this is queer, polyamorous, is black as well. It takes place in London. And what I really loved is that this book has such excellent balance of character development and romance and spice. Okay, so in terms of character development, we have Keon, who's overworked and unhappy in his job, and he wants to quit, but he's so concerned about pleasing his parents, who are just so proud of the job he has and the work that he does. But he's burnt out, he's overworked, he's unhappy. Then we have Jordan, who is estranged from her parents because of her job in sex work, but she desperately wants a relationship with her mother. And we have Luca, who's terminally ill father wants to reconnect after essentially piecing out of his life at a young age, and also his relationship with his mother is not the best. And I loved that we get to see these characters navigate these situations internally, but they also lean on each other and offer support. And in terms of novels and novellas, that is what I read during the month of August. Again, I will be having a separate wrap up for all of the comics and manga that I read during the month of August. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe. If you haven't already, press the notification bell so you're notified every time I release a new video. Like, comment, share, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Showing. I ain't living for the moment. I see what's mine and I want it. Hungry like a Pac-Man. I'm Bruce Wayne and Batman. I'm Naruto with a Hanzo. Got a sharp mind like I'm Einstein. Plus I'm copywriting, so it's all mine. Check it for me, I'm in the sky.